You are now entering the Luxecore Studios. And you've secured a seat for the Protecting Your Radius podcast. Here, we build connections from your contracting profession to some of the top bleeding edge products and services. Don't get deterred. Let's not delay. Here is your host, Nathan Downs.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Protecting Your Radius podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Downs. And on today's episode, I have a special guest, Mr. Michael Reed, the Executive Director for the American Fence Association. Michael, thanks for joining me today, bud.
Thanks, Nathan. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So, hey, we are going to get right into this because there is a lot of things going on in the industry. We just came off, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, FenceTrac 2023 in Oklahoma City in my backyard. Lots of activity, lots of action coming out of that. I know up at mid-year in Nashville, because next year FenceTrac 2024 is going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. Really excited. I went to the last one that we had there 6-7 years ago, whenever that was. It was unbelievable. I'd never been to Nashville. It was awesome. What a cool place to go. But man, I wanted to get you on here today, Michael, to specifically talk about a number of different things. You have, you've been on other podcasts already, have talked about who you are. If people don't know who you are, go check out the fence expert, Joe Everest, his YouTube channel. You guys had a very long conversation about all your background and basically your rep sheet, right? And then I know Dan Blanc had you on My Fence Life, and you guys got to break into some different things that were going on post FenceTrac. But I was thinking over the last couple of weeks, specifically, Michael, about what like the value of the American Fence Association, because there's so many things going on. There's so much activity in what we're seeing out there. And I was just wondering, I wanted to see what you'd weigh in, because I think that's an important thing to start this conversation today with, is that value add that the American Fence Association can bring to a contractor.
So I would love to talk not only about what contractors get out of their investment in AFA, but just members in general, because I think that's a really good way to think about the value of membership, is not just limiting it to contractors, but to think about what happens when contractors and the supplier side of the industry come together to solve problems.
Yeah. You know, one thing I've heard a lot of people mentioning, Michael, where we could start this conversation was, they say specifically, what do I get for my investment? Like, I pay this money into the AFA, like what's the value that comes back immediately? And I usually think that most people might be initially saying that value as far as like how to, like that rate of return on investment. So what do you think when you hear someone say that?
So, I've been talking about the association experience for over 30 years. And when I hear that question initially, that seems like a level one question, like what's my return on investment? So if you think about AFAs, especially on the contractor side, if you think about the investment of being roughly $650 for our mid-tier, that's not little guys, that's not giant companies, $650 is kind of the middle tier. If you think about how easy it is to monetize that investment by looking at the member savings program, and whether it's credit card processing or shipping or tires or uniforms, it depends on what your business is and the makeup of what your business needs are. You can monetize that financial investment almost immediately. And we have somebody on board, the gentleman who runs our member savings program, Mark Chavone, serves as a consultant to folks and helps them find the right program. So when I think about when people want to know what the return on investment is, like, I like to get that out of the way really quick, because there's over 40 programs that somebody could participate in, from business insurance to tires to everything. And so I like to get that out of the way quickly, and then focus on the real value of membership, which is how much that you can grow personally and professionally and scale your business. And that's where I think things get really exciting. When you start talking about the challenges that entrepreneurs face and what happens when you're in the same room with people who have traveled the journey for you and can make it, I always talk about, can you help me take a shortcut, or can you help me avoid a pothole? And if you can do those two things, there's real value in that. So the financial piece is almost kind of like a level one, check the box, and then tell me about yourself and tell me about your business, and then I'll tell you how to get the most out of your AFA engagement.
That's good. Yeah, I think that's a confusing point for a lot of people, Michael, because
sure.
Especially as a business owner, you're always looking at, when I put these dollars in here, what tangible thing is that returning? And I agree. I mean, that's my experience with the association. It's far beyond anything monetary that I've gotten from it.
So Nathan, think about this. I always, if I'm in person with somebody and we're talking in the AFA booth, or I'm talking, I'll go to businesses and I'm talking to folks. I'm like, this isn't Costco. You don't pay a membership fee and then get a direct value of those things. We have that element, and our membership savings program is tremendous. Like I said, there's 40 different programs in there depending on what your business needs are. But here's the thing: it's when you do like you have and become involved in chapter level, or get involved in committees, and you start to build your personal and your professional network. That's when your membership really begins to pay off.
So good. So good. So what do you think, Michael, since you've got the narrative going in that direction on that value of the networking and the growing and stuff, I know there's a lot of things going on in the training side and just what the organization has done, just what we talked about at FenceTrac between all the chapter presidents, because I am still the Midwest chapter president of the AFA there.
And thank you for being involved at that level. I really appreciate it. Probably should have started this conversation with that acknowledgement and that thanks, but thank you very much for doing that, Nathan.
No, absolutely. I mean, because it's just like what we're doing here today, Michael. I mean, my heart behind all of this is to create a better industry, right? And make it more professional. And I've talked to Tony Thornton about that for years. I've already talked to you about that since your time on board. And that's what I hope everyone that consumes any of this content, whether listening or watching, that they get that feel that this is like a legit thing, and it can be more than just the chuck in the truck. Now, it can start there, and that's okay, right? But yeah, I mean, it
absolutely.
Can be something more. It can be a legacy. It can be, there's a safety component. There's a, people need what we have. They got stuff to protect all the time.
Yeah, me too. I liken it to, if you think about it from a level one, you check the box when it comes to financial return on investment. When you think about the next part of the value proposition, I think about the training piece, because if you think about your employees or you think about yourself and your own professional development as an entrepreneur, I think that's the next level of value that people get. And so when you think about placing a value on your membership or your participation, if you so Fence Installation School is coming up the first week in June. And that is a great place for employees that have 1 to 2 years of experience, to give them a comprehensive understanding of the technical competencies necessary to do each of the fence installation disciplines. But that's only part of what they get there. What's the value to your business if you send an employee and they know that you care enough about them to invest in their development as a professional? And then they go to this experience and they see, man, there's other people that do what I do, and we're all together in this profession. You start to think about their time with you, not as an employee, but as a career, and they can stay with you and continue to develop because you've invested in them. If you eliminate turnover, what's the dollar value to you? What's the headache relief value to you as an entrepreneur? That's when you start talking about real dollars in terms of value of your membership. If you have an employee that comes back from that fence training school experience or in a sales training school experience, not only are they better developed from their job competency standpoint, they're more they feel valued as an employee because you've invested in them, and they're more committed to your company because you've put kind of the professional, put your money where your mouth is in terms of being their valued employees. Everyone says employees are valued. Okay, well, let's make them better at their jobs.
Yeah. Increase everything across the board. You said June 2023. We've got the Fence Week coming up, the training school. Where is that? Where can people get more information on that?
You can always go to the website to find out and register for the Fence School. And Fence School this year for Fence Week is the Fence Installation School.
Okay.
So on the installer side, and then Sales Training School. Okay. And so folks who are estimators or and it doesn't matter on the sales training side what their experience is. It's going to be a highly interactive program. And it doesn't matter whether you're super experienced or you're brand new to the sales side of things. You're going to be sitting in the room with some great experts, experienced people who understand sales in our industry, and then working with the other folks in the room to make yourself a better salesperson. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a great experience. And the Fence Installation School is always a good experience. And it's not just because of the technical stuff. The technical teaching is great. It's also because they walk away thinking to themselves, I had no idea that working for this fence company was this cool, was this important.
Yeah.
So,
Michael, when you just said that, it reminded me, it's really cool. I had the same experience. I worked at Ameristar at the beginning of my career, 8 years in. I leave in 2013, so 10 years ago. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but my buddy Brett Richardson said he was going to FenceTrac. I'd been helping him launch FenceTrac, Luxecore and all them off the ground. And I said, man, hey, we're all going to FenceTrac. So we go out to Vegas. And for the first time in my life, thinking or talking about fencing and gates and all the security stuff, once I was at FenceTrac and around all the people that I had talked to on the phone for years and gone out and seen their businesses and stuff, but really felt that camaraderie and that environment that was there, I had appreciation immediately of like, this is something that I could probably do the rest of my life and not feel terrible about it or not feel like I made a poor choice, because I met some people that were unbelievable. And I was used to working with my estimators at Ameristar and our individual clients and stuff. And you're in the minutia, right? You're in the day-to-day, the grind of it and stuff. So you don't see, the forest, you just see the trees at that point, right? Yeah. But going to FenceTrac like totally changed my mind. I took a class, I passed a test, and then as Tony Thornton always reminded me, I became like Nick Reich. I was like, I might as well just get every certification known to man because I can. And then, it just kind of became a game. But, I just mentioned Nick. So check this out, Michael. We have never had in the association, and I've never seen anywhere in our industry at all, any of the groups, but specifically the AFA, take resources and hire someone like Nick Reich to run education from the ground up for the entire association. Like what he does, can you explain in a minute just that value that Nick brings? Because I know Nick personally, and I've known him for a long time. The dude is super smart. His list of accomplishments and what he's done on the installation side, on the distributor side for gate operators, for safety, just where he's been at. But now that he works for the association and he's the director, he's leading the charge for education. Like explain how important and vital that is to the direction that the entire association's going.
All right. So that's a lot to unpack
in a minute.
in 1 minute. So let me just say that your experience at FenceTrac is kind of what happens. So people join for whatever reason they join. They think they should. They want a discount on something. They want to go to FenceTrac. Whatever, they join. And then they have an experience. Yours was FenceTrac. It could be this fence installation school like in June. It could be some experience. And then they're hooked because it's what your hat says. It's like a fence family. So that's the thing that makes that makes AFA unique, is that it becomes that family. And then what happens is that you get pulled into a chapter experience. So you move from this transaction that then becomes really then a way of leadership. And you're doing it for a personal reason. You're doing it because you want greater technical competence, or you are feeling good about the relationships that you're building, or that they're fruitful in terms of growing your business because that network is helping you grow your business. And then there's a strategy. So that's not an accident. That has been happening for 60 years in AFA, and a variety of industry challenges that AFA has met over the years. And then you get somebody like Nick. And for those folks who don't know Nick, he is been through every certification program that we have and understands learning from a technician standpoint, from a technical standpoint. So what Nick is doing is upgrading every single one of our programs to make them even better for people from a learning perspective. And so we have had outstanding training for years, both on the fence side and on the gate side. And Nick's been a product of that education. Now what we're doing is we're making him a learning expert, and we're helping him say, okay, how do I take a job that I fell into, or my parents forced me into, or I just happened to show up one day and get, Tony Thornton's comment about being 15 years old and being a neighbor said, your dad told me you need to get in the truck so you can build fence. That's the story. Jump into the truck so you can build fence. That's everybody's story. They just fall here, or they're born into the business. What Nick's doing from us from a strategic standpoint is turning that accident into a purposeful career. That's what Nick's doing for the industry, and for not just for AFA, he's doing it for us, but his actions are actually for the greater good of our members and for the industry. And that's a pretty powerful thing, because that allows me to focus on growing the organization and to continue to push the envelope in terms of leadership development. And Nick can take all of that kind of career pathways section of our responsibility as AFA, and he can own that and move us forward.
That's good. That's super good. So, Michael, as we kind of go through the back end of where we started on the value proposition of the association, my experience with you so far from a leadership perspective is like, you have some great experience leading organizations, and your insight and the way you interact with other leaders is really refreshing. Because I think it's easy for a lot of people, if you have that alpha mentality or whatever, to come in, you bulldog things. You're like, this is all wrong. Fix this, or whatever. But I know, because I was there, you specifically have not done that. And you've really challenged everyone across the board, from the chapter leaders all the way through the board of directors for the association, to look within ourselves and figure out where we see some of the weaknesses, some of the, doing those SWOT analysis. Just talked about that the other day on one of my other episodes, really breaking down what's vital to our group and what's important to the industry. And any insight you want to give into that? Because there's people just on our board of directors, and you've mentioned that in the past, where they're doing things that I don't even think, like, I didn't know some of the, like, I didn't know Catherine was doing anything with government. There's government relations stuff now, like, stuff like that. So
for over 30 years, Southwest Automated Security has been the premier provider of gate operators, access controls, CCTV, and so much more. Visit southwestautomated.com today, taking dealers to the next level.
Let me walk through. So we talked about, so let's take it. So if level one value proposition was your financial return on investment, and we check the box there. Level two is what everybody thinks about when they think about AFA, is our long-standing tradition of offering great education. That's level two. Now let's talk about kind of that third level. And that third level would apply both to contractors and to the supplier side of our industry. And that's what we do as an industry with regard to government relations, with regard to bringing people together, with regard to, our role in the industry is to be that convener of people. We did a brand refresh that people are about to start seeing now. So everybody's going to start using this idea of AFA is it's where you belong, where you grow, where you learn, where you succeed. This new brand refresh is a nice way of talking about the journey. And in terms of our ability to bring people together and protect the industry with regard to government relations, to organize the industry to solve problems, to take a look at what the future of certification looks like, what the future of professional development looks like, what the future of how organizations work and work together. That's what AFA's done for 60 years and is our job within the industry. So you mentioned Catherine. So Catherine has been the head of our government affairs or government relations responsibilities. And we just had a huge success in Florida. And people wouldn't know this unless you were a Florida member. But there was some legislation that was coming down the pike that was due to go into effect in July. And had it gone into effect, we would have had, our members in Florida would have had major difficulties getting permits to do jobs. We partnered with the Florida Home Builders Association. We advanced new legislation that basically took that rule and punted the date that it went into effect. And not only that, but it set us up very nicely for our members to continue to do business the way that they have been, and possibly even take advances to move us into specialty contractor categories where we haven't been before that would be a benefit to them. So our work in terms of government affairs, when people are struggling with a local licensing issue, or we're advancing safety like we are in California, where the states are they're modifying the building code to better make gates safer, make manual gates safer. We're active participants in those discussions to help make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And those are the type of things that people don't immediately think about. So if we're kind of going through the levels of engagement and the levels of value, it's the things that we do behind the scenes when there's a problem or when there's an opportunity to advance safety standards, for example.
Yeah.
People don't even think about that until they need us.
Right. Yep. Exactly. On the flip side of that, getting away from the regulation stuff, but the association as a whole, I feel like, for me personally, Michael, like, there's been a lot of things that I've been able to take away from that, opportunities to lead, to get involved. And I know that's always seems like it's a challenge, right? Like, if you don't know someone directly or they're dragging you into it, it seems like I think there's often like a barrier of entry, concern for a lot of members or whatever. So, and I've was pretty fortunate this year. Like I got to present at FenceTrac and do some different things. So, it's kind of like whatever you make it. That's the best way I can explain that. Like you make it what you want. But what do you think about when I say that, Michael? Because I know you're pretty passionate about several different areas within that scope. How do you feel when you hear contractors saying, I want to get more involved, or what can I do to make a difference?
So I think that's ultimately that's where we're talking about the real value at that point, is when somebody has made a little bit of effort to get involved. And you did a great job at your FenceTrac presentation, by the way. It was
Thank you.
fantastic. But when somebody makes a little bit of an effort to make room in their busy days to be a chapter president or serve on a chapter board, or get involved in a service project at the local level, or come to FenceTrac and get involved in the service project at the missions project at the national level. When you make that effort, my philosophy is we need to honor that and cherish the fact that you made that, and that there needs to be direct, talk about return on investment. When you make that time investment, you need to take that back. So my hope is when we do strategic planning at the board level, I'm not just leading the organization through strategic planning. I'm teaching you how to do strategic planning for your business. When we are having discussions about what the future of the industry holds, I'm not just doing that for AFA's sake. I'm doing it for your sake as well. We've been part of this process to revamp our chapter or our grassroots efforts. Now, when people are involved in that process and they're helping make change happen at the local level, like they feel empowered. It's not just then they're paying their dues and they're checking a box and doing what they're actually advancing their businesses, their own leadership abilities because of their involvement in AFA. And that's where the real return on investment is for leaders.
Yeah. And one thing, Michael, I think that's gotten my craw, like I'm going to be totally transparent here, but it's gotten my craw for a long time, is I've seen people online and in all sorts of different platforms, right? And they'll say, we need to make the association doesn't do A or didn't do B for me, or I didn't see a value in C. But then my immediate thought is, well, what have you done to even like let them know or address that? Like, what are we doing as members to push back and say, I don't get this. I don't like this. I mean, it feels like a lot of people will have a thought or have a challenge. They'll internalize it. They won't verbally say something, or they won't send an email or reach out. And then they have a very strong opinion about, well, now I'm going to make a change and I'm going to go off and do this other thing. And I'm like, well, hold on. Like, how is the association bad if you didn't even try to get involved and try to even broach a pain point or does that make sense? Like, I feel like often people are saying, we're going to, I want to do this and make it better. And AFA, in the past, not now, but it has been said in the past, AFA sucks or something. A long time ago, they said that. And I'm sitting there going, oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Have you ever talked to somebody? Have you ever tried to even, do something yourself? Like try to get a board of director position in your chapter. Like if you really care and you want to make an impact, I mean, that's what I did. I was invited by Jamie Pavel and Matt Warner from My Salesman, Empire Fence and Net. And they told me I needed to do it because one time I said something to Jamie when he was our president. And I said, man, that is so dumb. I don't understand why you guys are doing that. He said, well, congratulations. You're now on the board.
You're now in charge.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to show you. You wanted to run your mouth. And I said, well, you think it's so. And then now that I'm here, I'm like, oh, Jamie, I did not give you enough grace. But I think that's the power of associations, right? That's the power is you can have a thought, you can say, we need to make a change, we need to do this, we need to do this. And then leadership going, okay, we hear you. Now come on. I want to show you why. And we've talked about this offline, but I would love for you to share now as we're kind of getting around to the end of this conversation for today, Michael, is we have had some leaders for the association over the past couple of years, like right place, right time, right people. So go through that, because when you've told me the story of everything that has happened over the last 5 years, it's really pretty incredible. And I guarantee most people watching this or listening to this have not heard what you're about to say.
So that's a great tee up. Thank you. So when you think about what AFA is, AFA isn't some off in a corner, off on the shelf. Or AFA is made up of the people of this industry. And Tony first, and now me, what we're responsible for is to bring the people together and tee up the conversations, much like you just teed up this question for me, and then to figure out together where things go. And sometimes people don't like that process. Entrepreneurs especially, they think, no, I can do it better my way. And that's just how a lot of us who have entrepreneurial genes, that's how we figure it. We'll do it our way better.
Yep.
But here's the thing. In today's world, I would argue that the better way to do things is collectively, is to say, what are the major problems that we're having, and how do we lift this load together? And sure, I might not get everything I want the way I want it in the timeliness that I want it, but boy, oh boy, is the load lighter when you're doing it with your family, when you're doing it with your colleagues. Now, here's the thing. We've got a lot of constituents in this, and so the reason why AFA as an institution might move more slowly than an individual company or a more targeted organization is because we listen to a lot of different inputs before we move. We don't just wake up on a Monday and say, we're going to do X, Y, Z, and then it's implemented on a Friday. We have to say, what'll be the impact of this decision on these other 5 different constituents? And then we have to make sure everybody moves along together. And we're working to expedite that process and move that process more quickly. But at the end of the day, this is how associations work, is when you truly listen to people and involve them in the decision-making process, it allows you to do grander things. It may take more time, but it allows you to accomplish more bigger things because you've involved everybody in the decision-making process. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge. And so when you look at Tony's role before me and you look at my role, I'm getting to the right place, right leader, right time. Tony was the perfect executive director for where AFA was at its time. And now the needs of the organization evolved, and I'm able to take that work that Tony and the staff did and move that again, to advance that again. On the board side, we get the president that we need when we need it. So last year's president was Sam Williams, and Sam made sure that we were infrastructured correctly. So he advocated for the right resources for marketing and communications, the right strategies around our membership development, and how do we improve our member experience? Do we have the right, in terms of shepherding and me as the new executive director, and making sure that I was set up correctly? So Sam's emphasis was on infrastructure and the resourcing of that infrastructure. Now with Bobby Batchelor from Cedars Fence, Bobby's strength is systems. He's an engineer. His deal is, let's put the right systems in place. Let's focus on creating these good member journeys when it comes to how suppliers get to FenceTrac. What's that journey look like? When it comes to members and how they get into the organization and stay in the organization, what's that system look like? What's the system look like for leadership development? So Bobby's emphasis is in leadership. And that's where we are in terms of our journey. We infrastructured it. Now we're creating the systems. And then next year, when Brad Howard becomes president, he's the evangelical person. He's going to be out there saying, look how great AFA is, look how wonderful. We're getting the right leadership right at the right time. And so it's a pretty, and I don't know, it's a chicken and egg thing. I don't know if the leaders, if it just works out that way, or the leaders themselves rise to that occasion because that's what the organization needs. It's probably, if I sat here and it's probably a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You know, you mentioned Bobby Batchelor. That guy is freaking one of the smartest guys. I look to in our industry. Yes. I would have to contest that of all the genius level type people in our industry, Bobby Batchelor and Josh Glover are by far away is people I've interacted with a million times. And I wish I interacted with both of them more, Michael, but holy cow, those guys are freaking smart. They make me feel so dumb. I'm like, I'm not sure why I'm in this room, but I'm glad I'm here because y'all are so smart. I mean, oh man, we could probably have an hour conversation just about some of the things that I've learned from them and how they're doing stuff. Bobby showed me one time how Seegers does the back end. Like you're talking about processes and systems. If you've seen his system, he does not show that to just anybody. But when I saw it, I said that is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Holy cow. Like, I'm like, and he's just explaining all this stuff. And I just looked at him. I said, sir, I don't even think I should be talking to you because it's just, you could just tell his bag was so much bigger than mine in a good way that I just felt like, I felt just honored to be around. Like, holy, I was like, can you just touch my arm? Hopefully a little bit will rub off on me and my little company can aspire to be something awesome and have these processes and systems in place one day. But you're right. I mean, it is amazing how everything has fallen in line, how you came along after Tony, how Tony advocated and completely changed what the association has been. And that's because he's a fence guy. Like that was his passion and his heart with it, and your experience on the association level. And then, like I said, your leadership style is just so it's awesome because it's what we need at the right time to move forward and get that on. So with that being said, go ahead.
Let me just comment because I think it's really important when we think about the culture. First of all, thank you very much for your comments about my leadership style. It's something that I've gone to school. I'm finishing my doctorate in leadership. It's something I care about immensely, but I always want to respond to that kind of compliment with it's not. This isn't really about me, except that I'm steering. This is really about everybody else and my ability. I think what you're seeing and what you're appreciating is my ability then to engage others and bring them on. So bring them into the discussion.
Yep.
So here's what I'll tell you about your experience with Bobby and his sharing with you. That's why I sold my half of my company and came on board full-time with AFA. It's that experience in and of itself. And we can end here. I know you're trying to wrap me up. But here's the thing about AFA. This is a journey. We're going down this journey together. You and I and the rest of our Fence family. We're going down this journey, and sometimes you're going to fall off the road for whatever reason. You're going to get distracted. You're going to have a difficult time personally. You're going to fall off the road, and I'm going to be there to pull you back on the road. And then 5 miles down the road, I'm going to fall off, and you're going to be there to pull me back on the road. That's when people ask me about AFA's culture, that's AFA's culture. And but you don't get that immediately. You have to join, then you have to participate, then you have to serve with a servant's heart. And as a result of that process, all of a sudden you realize, holy cow, I'm in something really special and unique. That's what AFA is. That's AFA's culture. That's why I'm here. I think ultimately that's why you're here and other folks is because they realize almost almost by accident, but it's very deliberate. It's not by accident. Hey, I'm part of something really special and unique in this industry. And sometimes I don't like how things get done, and I disagree with it. But boy, oh boy, am I glad I'm part of the process.
Yep. Nothing else needs to be said. What a great close, Michael. I appreciate you. That was the bow, the package, everything all in one. It's done. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nate. I appreciate you having me on. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Absolutely.
So
and I want to definitely let everybody know in the future, we've had some other offline conversations about leadership. And I'd love to get into another episode with you specifically about now that you've got to consume like me teaching at FenceTrac and all the other instructors, like what that looks like. Cause I think, there is opportunities to step outside your comfort zone and do some of that stuff. And I bet I would contest that probably my own presentation. I hadn't presented in a number of years. I do have some public speaking background. So I'm sure the beginning was very clunky. And then as you saw me settle in, and stuff.
It was good. It was a very good presentation. We have great education. So FenceTrac is only part of the education. This is my last plug for Fence Week, first week in June in Ohio. It's going to be awesome. It is going to be awesome. Fence Installation School, Sales Training School, send your folks. But here's the thing, that will still only get you to that level 2. It's getting involved and getting engaged that's really going to be the return on investment that folks talk about when they're talking about, well, what do I get out of my membership?
Yep.
So there's taking the whole conversation full circle.
Full circle. Yep. And that's what we need. Everybody watching, everybody listening. We need involvement across the industry. And, the oldest association out there in our industry is the AFA. We've got the biggest event with the FenceTrac and all that stuff like that. So there is room for improvement. And in closing on my end, Michael, I know I'm part of the strategic marketing committee, and there's a small group of people really diving into those things. And I can tell everyone from that experience, like, there is so much focus from the board of directors to start really engaging even more and utilizing some of the channels and stuff. And that's why I said I'd love to have you back on and talk about other things outside of the association, because our conversations offline are fantastic. And I think there's a lot of people that can learn so much. So thank you again for your time. We appreciate everything you're doing up there and everything the association's growing into. And that's it, guys. Michael Reed, American Fence Association. That was this episode. We appreciate you as always. If you have any questions for Michael or myself, you can always send them in to info@protectingyourradius.com. We would love to hear some feedback about what we talked about today. Maybe some other things you'd like me to talk about with Michael in the future. Like I said, we would like to do a leadership episode and some different things, because however we're getting better in each of our businesses or at home with our families, it's only going to make our lives better, but it's going to make everything around us better. So always keep improving. Love you guys. Stay with it, and we'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Protecting Your Radius podcast from the Luxecore Studios in Bixby, Oklahoma. Thanks for sticking around, and connect with us and all of our partners at www.protectingyourradius.com. We want to thank our premier partners, Luxecore, the newest line of premium quality composite infill to slide into your FenceTrac fence system. Frame your style today. Also, FenceTrac, the world's first patented standalone stain machine. Utilizing flood coat technology, FenceTrac covers boards, pickets, posts, and any type of dimensional wood you can think of. And what better way to use your FenceTrac machine than to use the easy application Wood Defender family of stains. Wood Defender goes on easy and covers in one coat with no back brushing. And of course, the true power of our show is you, the listener. Please rate and review our show on whatever platform you consume this content. Your 5-star likes and reviews help other contractors get the message that we all want to be better and do better. And in the construction world, we can never forget that before you can be great, you've got to be good. Before you can be good, you've got to be bad. But before you can even be bad, you've got to try.